Okay, I'd like to welcome our next speaker here, Andrew Bates. Andrew's from New Zealand, and he's going to talk to us about what consultants think about the veterinary profession in New Zealand.
Righto, well, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. And I'd like to acknowledge my fellow workers who've been involved in this project. Now, this is a slightly different sort of talk. Because it's about relationships. It's about the relationships between farm vets and consultants. And in New Zealand, consultants are people who are engaged full-time in professional provision of services, management and advisory services to farmers. In this context, they're non-veterinarians, and that management advice might relate to production, grass growth, grass management, farm systems, farm succession, budgeting, financial performance, and staff appraisal. So they have a very wide remit, and they tend to offer a very holistic and farm systems-based approach. This work often brings them into contact with vets when vets do anything more than just engage in one-to-one cow treatment, and this can often create a feeling of conflict. And so we wanted to engage with the consultants that operate in our area and try and explore what was going on and whether there was something that we were doing that we needed to change. So before I start, because it's about relationships and because that's a fairly uncomfortable thing to stand up here talking to a bunch of people that I don't really know very well, I thought I would share with you, oops, I'm going too fast, I'm sorry. Share with you some of the important relationships in my household. So this is us, this is the Bates family in New Zealand. There's 4 of us, plus the dog, and I have got 2 teenage daughters. And since I first did this talk, one of them's become a goth. And if any of you live with a goth, you'll know that that means that the mood swings, because we have considerable amounts of progesterone in our house, only the dog and I are exempt, can be quite considerable. And they can be a bit dark sometimes. I'm a bit, and so is the dog. We're both a bit bipolar, but overall, it's a happy place. So anyway, that's relationships. It means basically that I'm no stranger, I hope, to looking at relationships. And a few years ago, I came across this book in an airport. And really, all you need to know about this book is written on the front. There's no more wisdom in it than that. I hope this talk is different. But because of the dairy downturn, I thought I better get into a bit of diversification. And I will be signing copies of this book at the end for a very small consideration if anyone is interested. It will help fly me back to New Zealand. So anyway, having got that out of the way, sorry, I'm having trouble with the sticker. Okay. Effectively, I'm going to be telling you a story, because I read that 60% of people after a presentation will remember a story, only 15% will remember statistics. So to try and increase that 60%, I thought I'll sex it up a bit, just like Game of Thrones. So here we go. We're going to have plotting and feuding. We're going to have some unnecessary violence, and best of all, we're going to have unnecessary naked people. Now, I can assure you that the naked person you're about to see in the next few slides is not me, thank God. Okay, with a little bit more serious hat on, what we were trying to do is really understand what is the role in the dairy consultant's mind, or farm consultant mind, of vets on dairy farms. Do they think we're impartial when we give advice? And what do they see our value in terms of farm productivity and profitability? In New Zealand, we have strong drivers for farm profitability, just like you do here. And consultants work very much in trying to maximize net farm value. Okay, trying to be a little bit more serious and to reassure you that I'm not just going to stand and BS here all the afternoon, we have actually written this up and published it. I'd be delighted if even just 2 of you went and looked it up and read it, because it would probably double my readership figures. So please go out there and make me feel good. But we're passionate about trying to get the work that we do out into the public domain and make it reasonable and of a standard where it can be published. So we ask people what they think, and as you'll know from recent experience, this can be a tricky thing to do. So we're going to summarize the results of this telephone survey that we conducted. Now, Vetlife took a big, brave decision in commissioning this. There was no funding for this. It came out of my boss's pocket, which I think is really admirable. And we carried out a market research company called Cinta, who's recognized in New Zealand, for doing this sort of work. And they did a formal telephone survey for us of farm consultants working in our area. The consultants knew it was a veterinary practice who was behind the survey, but they didn't know which one. And they operated on farms throughout the South Island, not just our clients. And that's important, because some of the reflections on vets are not that good, and I don't want you to think it's just us. So these are the businesses that we surveyed. We went to 36 of them. There's no formal list of consultants in New Zealand, so you can't go and look up who they are. And 25 agreed to do it. And you can see there's a roughly 50-50 split between how many people they've got in their operations. Somewhat surprisingly, the level of experience that they have is not that great. Only a third had more than 5 years, and the rest are less than that. So a lot of these are young graduates out of agricultural universities with good quality agricultural science degrees, but not a lot of miles on the road. Okay, so what do they think of us? This is your naked picture, so enjoy it while it's here. It's not terribly flattering, I'm afraid. So, what do they think about animal health spend? Essentially, they see it as an expense. This is probably no surprise to anyone here, but they see themselves as the custodians and the guardians of that expense very, very strongly. Now, we try to quantify the answers to some of the questions in the form of Likert scales, where we ask them to score from 1 to 5 on whether they disagreed or agreed with a statement. So the person would read the statement to them, and they would say, yes, I agree 100% with that, or disagree. And we'd add them up. And we explain to them that a 3, 4, or 5 is basically you're agreeing, and a 1 or 2 is that you disagree. So here's the statement: I mostly see animal health as an expense, and most of them disagree with that. So most of them actually agree that they see it as an expense. Okay, do they see their role as a custodian? You bet. 91% agree with that statement. That actually got worse with experience as well. They were even more adamant in that view if they've been working for more than 5 years. Do they think we're impartial? Again, it's bad news. Here's the question. Vets always have a vested interest in the advice they give farmers. Only 4% disagree with that. It's not just us. This was vets across South Island that they were talking about. Are vets focused on their own profitability? Little less agreement or disagreement with that. 40% disagreement score. And this reflects a certain level of ambiguity in a lot of the answers. And we analysed the answers to see whether it was a consistent group that were always ambivalent or mixed up, if you like, about what they thought about vets. But no, it wasn't. There was ambiguity right across the whole group that answered about how they feel about us. It's not all bad, though. I'll give you some good news. They do think that we're in alignment. And again, think back to your last statements. There's clearly some mismatched opinions possibly in here, but they do think that they and we are in alignment with the advice we give, and they do apparently respect us. They don't trust us, but they respect us. Okay, where do they get their information from? That's not too bad to read. And essentially, it's not a bad list. It's quite a respectable list. I think if you ask most vets, certainly in New Zealand, that would not be that dissimilar to what they're doing. They're looking at, reasonably respectable resources. How often do they interact with us? Again, this is the results of the number of interactions they have a year. And the average and the median was about 3 times a year, 3 or 4 times a year, 3 or 4 times a year. But there are some outliers. These guys down here must be in some kind of de facto relationship. I don't know what's going on. And here, there's clearly very little interaction going on at all. But even once every 3 months, when you think of the nature and the importance that farmers put on their relationship with their farm consultants, it's not much interaction, really. So, how do they get on with us? Well, apparently we have an excellent working relationship, even though we only see them very infrequently. Perhaps that's why. And we ask them what would make it better. Not surprisingly, as always, more communication and more teamwork. Yeah, of course. But interestingly, they thought that it should be the vets who put more effort into that side of the relationship than they did. So either they thought that it wasn't important to them, or they thought that we were significantly underperforming in the teamwork and communication. And both could be true. So what do they think we should be doing? It's treatment of sick stock and disease prevention. It's very little on maximizing farm productivity and profitability. How do they think we should be doing it? Again, this is bad news. Look at that list. It's all product dominated. So essentially, we're still supposed to be James Herriot, but we're supposed to be doing it by selling stuff, not services. And what do they think they should be doing? It's a very broad list. There's a strong emphasis on animal health, but it covers pretty much everything that goes on a dairy farm. And I ask the question, isn't that what we're wanting to do? As a profession, aren't those the very areas that we're wanting to get into? What does it look like when they're successful? So how do they feel about a farm in its successful animal health terms? Now, there's a lot of ambiguity in this slide. You've got people who definitely want to reduce disease, and you've got other people who want to be better than the neighbors. But you've got an equal number who see success as reducing animal health spend. And I think this is part of the crux of the way they look at us. To them, animal health expenditure is a one-off that leads to a loss of disease. Once you've spent the money, the disease is gone. They don't buy into the concept of preventative medicine at all. They don't see a farm as an unstable ecosystem that requires constant input to keep it going. And I think that's more the view that we take. Okay. So, to sum up, they're very concerned about the dollar spend on farm. It's one of their key drivers of success, and it's one of often their background is in accountancy and management and economics. So they're very concerned in dollar spending. They accept that our area is animal health. And they also accept that animal health can increase profitability, which is good. But they very, very much accept, or very strongly believe, that animal health is linked closely to dollar spend. And that's when they get interested in animal health. And because of that, they definitely don't believe that spending more money with the vet will increase the farm profitability. So they respect us, but they don't trust us, and they don't see us as the major drivers of driving that farm productivity or profitability. So where are we going? What are we doing as a practice in the light of this? Well, a number of things, both on an individual level and more at a systems level, with talking to the universities who train some of these people. We think there is some overlap, and we are trying to make some differences. We need to motivate ourselves. Talking to these people doesn't necessarily come easily when they have bad-mouthed your practice or what you've been doing for a while. So we need to communicate with them. We do need to find ones that we can work with. There's no point in talking to some, but others the door is more open. And we need to really listen. We need to see whether they think we are like this. And I think we need to be really honest with ourselves. Are a lot of us like this? I became a vet because I like fixing things, most of the time anyway. And often the happiest times is when you're out there fixing stuff, whether it's a cow calving or a herd health mastitis problem or a complex epidemiological process, you're still fixing stuff. Farm consultants operate in a different way. They have this holistic, whole farm view, and they work with a different paradigm of tools. They do a lot of matching, they do a lot of pattern matching, they do a lot of comparative stuff, and they basically do a lot of piggybacking of ideas. But it appears to work very well for farmers. I think the danger is that we also often miss the big picture for those clients, and we don't truly understand their goals. That's me. I've got a few thank yous. Definitely want to thank those farm consultants. They knew it was a practice, as I say, and they knew the nature of the question. So it was really brave of them, if you like, to do this. I have had the opportunity to present this material to them as well, and I didn't get killed, so it can't be too bad. All colleagues in Vetlife for commissioning it and so on. Cinta did a great job. AgriHealth helped me get here, so thank you very much indeed. And to you all, thank you for listening. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Okay, I'd like to open up this presentation again for questions, so please raise your hand if you have any.
Yep, there's one.
Angus Campbell from Melbourne. Thanks for a great talk, Andrew.
Thank you.
The missing interviewee there are the farmers themselves.
Absolutely.
Do you have a feeling about what their views, a sample of farmers' views might be towards the role that they see for consultants versus their veterinarians?
That has been looked at to some extent. There's a European study, I can't remember exactly the details, looking at the role of farm consultants and farmers in biosecurity questions. There are numerous surveys looking at the roles of vets and farmers, but yeah, that's one of the next steps that we might look at, is within New Zealand, looking at how our farmers view those consultants. Yep.
Could I ask you to just...
Is there another one?
Could I just ask you to make a comment too? I thought it was very interesting that those consultants are probably selling things like inputs like fertiliser and nutritional supplements and what have you. And can you comment on what seems to be a discrepancy between them recommending a spend which is an ongoing input into the farm production versus them thinking that the veterinarian's animal health input is not a valid way to invest that money?
Well, by and large, the consultants in the area that was surveyed that we don't know who the individual respondents were, but we've got a fairly shrewd idea of which groups they came from, are generally not linked to the selling of product. So we don't have that conflict. This is not a beat-up of consultants either, really. I mean, the aim was, I suppose, to try and improve our understanding towards actually getting better relationships with these people. Because I think we have to recognise that the farmers do value their input. There is another paper whose reference I can't remember that essentially says that farmers look to their farm consultant very much to drive that farm profitability and productivity. And so we wanted to try and work with them and understand where they were coming from.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, we'll give Andrew another round of applause, please.